Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Twin Carbs. Now, today we'll be working on this Mazda MX-5. This is a 2006 Mark III, also known as MX-5 NC. Now, this car was, until recently, part of our Twin Carbs collection. However, it just wasn't being driven enough, so we sold it on to a new owner. And the reason it's back here today is because the battery doesn't seem to be holding its charge. Now, as we know, this could be caused by primarily any one of three things. Either the battery's faulty and is no longer holding its charge, or it could be a faulty alternator not delivering enough power to charge the battery, but it could also be some form of parasitic drain caused by a faulty electronic component somewhere in the car. So we're going to carry out some testing to try and ascertain the primary cause. Now, obviously, before carrying out these tests, it's best to ensure that the battery is fully charged. So when we went to collect the car this morning, the battery was completely flat. So we gave it a jump start from a known good battery. However, because of the weather here in Scotland just now, it is January, it wasn't going to be very pleasant working outside. So once the car was started, we decided to bring it along to the Twin Carbs HQ, where we could work in relative comfort. The trip here involved a journey of about 65 miles or so, which gives us the added benefit of, hopefully, giving us a fully charged battery now that we're here. So let's get the bonnet up and have a look and see what the problem is. Right, so the bonnet's up. We've actually got the tester connected to the battery and it's showing 12.41 volts, which is pretty good. Now, I know the light here says it's dead, but that's actually because we're checking the alternator and the engine's not running. So we'll switch that over to 12 volts. Now it's showing, if you can see that properly, a medium charge. I would expect it to be saying full, given the journey that it's had. But what we'll do is we're going to switch this back, and we'll start let's switch that back there. The voltage has already dropped down to 12.2 volts. So I'll ask my glamorous assistant to fire up the engine. Yeah, we can see we're now getting 13.7, which tells us that the alternator is okay. You can see we've got a green light there on the tester. So we know it's not an alternator problem, so what we're going to do next is we're going to disconnect the battery terminal, one of them, now, and then measure the current draw. You could do this with either the positive lead or the negative lead. It's much safer to do it with the negative lead, so we'll get that set up and see what happens next. So on the battery here, we're going to disconnect the negative terminal or earth terminal. One thing to remember, anytime you're working on car batteries, disconnect the earth first, or the negative terminal first, and always reconnect this last. So the positive one is the one that's going to cause you most grief if you short out anything to earth or to the body. Now I notice on this terminal there is also an extra wire, which suggests that there's some aftermarket parts have been added. So first thing I'm going to do is disconnect that. I will reconnect it when we start to test the battery drain. So we'll keep that handy and we shall just get in. This is extremely tight up against the clamp. I notice also in this battery that the posts here are quite small diameter, so there's spacers being put in between. So we're going to make sure that all of that is clean and scrubbed up when we come around to putting it back together again. So we've got that disconnected. I'm going to just reconnect this for the time being and just secure it again with a nut that was on there. And then what I'm going to do is get an ammeter to measure the current draw goes back into the car. Let's have a look at the condition of the terminals here. They don't look too bad. The actual clamp itself looks like it could do with a good clean. I don't know if you can see that properly, but it is a bit, yeah, it could do with a bit of a clean in there. Okay, so I'll go and get my ammeter and we'll be back in a second. So what we're going to do now, we have the ammeter set at 10 amps, which is the maximum setting. You don't want to put this on at 2 milliamps or something and blow the fuse in it. So it's on at 10 amps, and what I'm going to do is I've got one end of one of the connections onto the earth cable, and I'm just going to make contact with the nice wee spark there. Now my meter jumped up to about 400 milliamps there, and it's now down to 50 milliamps, which is probably maybe slightly higher than I would expected, but not critically higher. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to disconnect that extra wire that's connected to the negative terminal there, and just see what current we get with that disconnected. Okay, so we have now disconnected that extra wire that's been added, and I'm going to do the same test again and see where we're at. Yeah, well, pretty much exactly the same. We had an initial burst of like 400 milliamps, which I assume is the ECU saying thank you very much, I'll have some of that. And now it's stabilised and dropped back down to 50 milliamps. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like there is a severe parasitic draw affecting this battery. Right, so in conclusion, because there's no parasitic drain on this and the alternator seems to be charging, we have to reach the conclusion that it's the battery that's actually not functioning. Having taken the bracket off, we can see that this lens here should be green to indicate it's okay. It's actually black at the moment, or is it clear? You can't tell. Black would mean recharge according to this, and the just white says replace. So I think the best thing to do with this is actually take it out and replace it. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll be able to source a replacement battery locally. So we're going to put that in, and interestingly, this is showing a nice green in the lens. So that would suggest that this battery is good and that one is kaput. Because this battery has the narrow posts, we need a little spacers in there. Now, I like to have these spacers closed tightly as possible. That's quite a firm grip on that already, so I'm just going to get a persuading tool and pop that on. Okay, before we put the posts on, or put the terminals on, I'm just going to give them a quick clean. So this piece of felt stops any metal that grinds off it fouling on the battery casing. So I'll basically just give that a good wrap around and take off again. Nice and clean. It needs to be nice and clean inside the clamp as well, so we're just going to give that a quick clean there too. Take this fella off and we can pop him back on. Okay, so making sure that the terminal's on as tight as it possibly can, we've put the little spacer on there as well. I'm just going to give that a quick clean up. And there. Up in there. Right, I think we're good to go. Right, that seems to be the terminal on. Mustn't forget this little fellow, whatever he does. So there's a little bolt to hold him in place too. So now it's just a case of putting the battery bracket back in to hold it in place, and then we'll give it a start. Okay, so that's the battery installed. Everything's secure again. I haven't got the cover on, obviously, at the moment, but other than that, I think we're good to go. So I'm going to get my glamorous assistant to fire up. Well, I think we can call that a result. We hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and if you have, please like and subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you again next time.